Hello and welcome again. My name is David Hatch. I'm the founder and creator of the Leading with Integrity Leadership Framework. Today we're going to revisit a topic that continues to be relevant to so many companies and workplaces as the economic impacts of COVID persist. For many people, after over a year of remote working, furlough or some combination of the two, there is still plenty of uncertainty over what happens next. What should companies actually do for the best, and what employees even want? Thanks for joining me today. At this point, there's probably no denying that remote work will remain a part of many businesses day to day for some time to come. That being the case, it's useful to talk about what we can do as leaders, managers, or business owners to support our remote workers and facilitate their productivity. There's so many different challenges to deal with here. For example, not everyone will want to continue working remotely, just as not everyone will want to return to the office. And another big challenge is trying to understand what's best for your business too. On the one hand, it may be extremely attractive to go 100% remote and reduce or remove the majority of your office costs. But on the other hand, you may be understandably worried about that lost culture in your company if nobody's ever spending time physically in the same building. The precursor, if you like, to being able to best support a remote workforce is something I've spoken about before, and that's making sure your business has a fit-for-purpose remote working policy in place, or a flexible working one if that's a better fit. To do this, you'll need to answer those difficult questions like what is best for your company or what is best for your employees and how they work. It's important to maintain the dialogue while you're doing this and to try and arrive at a policy that's realistic, answers the bigger questions, and provides some clarity about working practices going forward. The key thing with this, whatever it looks like, is that it's clear, well communicated, and creates a sustainable balance between the needs and wants of the various team members and the needs of the business and its leaders. There are some good examples out there for how to do this well. Twitter is one that springs to mind, and also of how easy it is to get it wrong. For example, the issues that Apple have been having in the States over recent months. More recent and a great example is an article I recently saw about LinkedIn, who have apparently now made it policy for the teams themselves to decide when and if they will return to the office. LinkedIn has made a specific public statement that they do not want to pursue a one-size-fits-all approach to this, which I think is very progressive and forward-looking, and it's likely going to win them a lot of points with employees. And it's also just a pragmatic decision too, because there isn't ever going to be a perfect solution that will address the needs of every team in such a huge organisation. There's no one size that will fit all. So it's a sensible decision to begin by acknowledging that fact and then place the decision in the hands of the people most affected by it. And I think there's a lot we can learn from this management approach. So once you do have that guidance or policy in place, then you can start to properly think about how you're going to support your remote teams, even if they're not 100% remote. And there's two big headlines here, the tools and the interactions. When it comes to the technology and tools for remote working, how you use these is just as important as which ones you use. Choosing the right tech can help your team collectively stay organised and manage or track progress together, as well as giving you that extra insight as a leader or manager. Effective application of tools like video calling, live chat, and the old-fashioned phone call can also provide the means for informal communication that is often crucial to effective teamwork and leadership. Getting the right ones in place will also aid collaboration, and things to consider here are the various capabilities available balanced against the preferences and working patterns of your users or your teammates. A thorough needs analysis here will help you pick the best tech, tool, or software for the job. The foundational ones are probably already in place, so things like office software, video conferencing, and so on. What you should also think about is laptops or computers. These are quite easy to overlook, especially if your remote working has only come about recently as a result of the pandemic, or relatively recently. For example, have you actually provided your remote workers with a work device such as a laptop and phone? If not, do you think it's fair to expect them to use their personal devices? You wouldn't do that if they were physically in the office, so what's the difference? If you can't give them hardware for whatever reason, then are you at least reimbursing them for any costs incurred through the use of their own? Another thing to think about here is cybersecurity. Personal devices tend to be far less well protected than a company or a corporate one would be. And then beyond the bare minimum tech and tools needed to just perform a day-to-day job, you can also look at things that will give your team a value add and improve teamwork, collaboration, efficiency, and several other things. Planning and task management software are a good example. Workflow tools and virtual collaborative workspaces are also well worth a look. There's some merit in the argument that a lot of creativity and innovation has been lost, along with the disappearance of the face-to-face whiteboarding session or brainstorm or mind map or whatever you want to call it. But there are some quite good online virtual options now that will allow you to try to replicate or approximate that process and try to get back some of that lost creativity. Which brings us on to the second one of my headlines, culture and interactions. Arguably, this is the aspect of modern work life that has taken the biggest hit from COVID. It's hard to think of a single business that hasn't seen some level of disruption or change in the way people interact with their colleagues at work. At one end of the scale, companies have effectively had to shut down for long periods, with people on furlough and no work-related communication happening whatsoever, which is clearly a pretty big impact on workplace culture since it's effectively halted it. At the opposite end, some organisations work in key sectors and have seen more practical effects such as having to keep physical distance, wear masks and avoid close personal interactions, which on the face of it probably shouldn't have too big an impact, but in reality there is a big shift to the mindset there that will inevitably have had an effect on the way people interact at work and therefore upon the culture of those organisations too. It is in many ways a new ballgame, and perhaps even more so if remote working is going to be here to stay. So as a leader or manager, I think the best thing you can do here is just be mindful and considered about culture and interactions within your remote team, and try to approach these things with more intent than you might have done before. I've made a couple of previous videos that have focused exclusively on organisational culture, but when your team is remote, there is a much bigger challenge involved in building that culture and maintaining a positive version of it. Working remotely can remove a huge part of the informal communication and interactions that naturally occur in a workplace and upon which your organisational culture depends. With the added problem of physical isolation and fewer face-to-face interactions, this can make the culture feel stilted and disconnected very easily. At the opposite end of the scale, you can also run into problems like Zoom fatigue and a perception that you're trying to force the issue, you're trying too hard to build those connections. There is no right answer that will work for every company, every team, or every team member. Part of your role as a leader is to adjust and improve your management approach as you deal with each individual, to ensure that you get the best outcome you can both for them and for the output they produce. This is no different with a remote team. It can just be more challenging to achieve, and it will require more deliberate action on your part. For example, you would need now to pick up a phone or arrange a video call, whereas before you could just walk across the room and it would take you 30 seconds and it's done. Finding the right level for the frequency, the content, and the manner in which you communicate with your team is more important than ever. In many ways, it's the same as ever. You still need to be aware of what works for the individuals and what stresses or challenges they may be facing, and be sensitive to and supportive of those, just as you would in a face-to-face environment. It's just that now it's not as easy as it used to be. So those are my thoughts on supporting remote workers. I hope you found them useful, and please do feel free to leave a comment or start a discussion of your own. And please also show your support for the channel by hitting the like button as well. You can also subscribe and press the notification button to be informed when I post the next video. Next week we'll be talking about job satisfaction and what you can do to improve it. And if you want to learn more about the leadership training, coaching and mentoring programs I provide, then you can join our mailing list by visiting leading-with-integrity.co.uk/join. That's still a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? I've put a copy of that link in the description below this video to make it easier to access. And I really recommend joining that mailing list, as you'll get access to lots of value, including extra content that's not available anywhere else, information and articles about leadership and management, links to some exclusive programs, and details about special offers that I run from time to time. So do sign up today. And that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. I will see you next week, and be a leader, not a boss.